Hey kiddos, welcome to lesson 1.1 in math. Today we're going to be talking about several different things. The first thing we'll talk about in class today is commutative and identity property. And the second thing that we'll talk about in class today is even and odd. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the commutative and identity property. Have you ever heard of those before? What is commutative and what is the identity property? Well, we're going to learn more about each of those, and by the end of class, you should know what the commutative property is, as well as the identity property. You should also be able to identify even and odd numbers. So let's go ahead and get started. First, I'm going to pull up a PowerPoint for you guys to follow along with. At this time, you need to have the following things with you in order to be successful during this lesson. You will need a whiteboard and a marker. If you don't have a whiteboard, pull out your homework folder and write on the back of your homework folder, or you may get a scrap piece of paper and a pencil to follow along with us during this activity. So if you don't have those things, please pause this video now, go get your materials, and be ready to get started. All right, so today we are going to be learning about the commutative and identity properties. Those two things are important when learning about different math problems throughout this year. Well, what is the commutative property of addition? The commutative property of addition is where you can add the numbers in any order and get the same sum. An example of that is 3 plus 4 is 7. We take the number 3 and the number 4, and they do equal 7. But how do I show the commutative property? The commutative property is taking those numbers and flip-flopping them. The commutative property means to flip-flop our numbers. Notice how 3 and 4 are used, and so are 4 and 3. We both use the same exact sum at the bottom. That is an example of the commutative property. I would like you to write on your boards an example of the commutative property now. Pause the video, write your example, and when you're done, go ahead and start the video again. Well, what are some examples of the commutative property? Commutative property means that I'm going to flip-flop my numbers. You can use anything to flip-flop your numbers. So I might use 5 plus 4 equals 9. It's an addition sentence. But the commutative property means that I should flip-flop my numbers. So for my example, I also need to write 4 plus 5 equals 9. That is an example of the commutative property. I have flip-flopped my numbers. The 5 and the 4 and the 4 and the 5 are in different positions, but they both equal 9. Let's show a different example. I could even do 100 plus 30 equals 130. That's an example of the commutative property. But how do I show it? I have to flip-flop my numbers. It's still going to equal 130. But I have to show how is that an example of the commutative property. I would write 30 plus 100 equals 130. That is how you show the commutative property. You flip-flop your numbers. Now, some kiddos get kind of confused. They think if I show that 2 plus 1 equals 3 and 0 plus 3 equals 3, that is an example. That's incorrect. That's an incorrect example because you're not flip-flopping the numbers. Yes, my sum is 3. But the commutative property states it's a flip-flopping of numbers, or that you can add numbers in any order and still get the same sum. So make sure that your factors, or the numbers you add together, are the same numbers, only flip-flopped. All right, kiddos, let's learn about the identity property. What exactly is the identity property? The identity property is any number with a 0 in it. So what would that look like? An example of this would be 4 plus 0 equals 4. The reason it's in the identity property is because of the 0 that's in it. So any number sentence that has a 0 in it is going to be the identity property. Another example could be 0 plus 11 equals 11. When it has a 0, that means that it is the identity property. I would like you to pause the video now and show me an example of the identity property. All right, what is an example that you could show me of the identity property? The identity property is anything that has a 0 in it. So I could write 0 plus 5 equals 5. Why is that the identity property? It's because it has a 0 in it. Or I could move the 0. Maybe I do 42 plus 0 equals 42. That's also the identity property because it has a 0 in it. So any place that you put a 0, it becomes the identity property. So quick review. Identity property has a 0 in it. It could be 1,000 plus 0 equals 1,000, or it could be 0 plus 1 equals 1. Anytime you have a 0, you have the identity property. Or if I'm talking about the commutative property, it is 1 plus 3 equals 4, and I simply flip-flop the numbers. 3 plus 1 equals 4. The commutative property is when you flip-flop your numbers and get the same sum. All right, make sure you have a whiteboard or a scrap piece of paper for the next part of this PowerPoint. Alrighty, so what we're going to do is you are going to tell me what this property is. I'm going to show you a math problem. You need to decide, is it identity property or is it commutative property? On your board or scrap piece of paper, please write I for identity and C for commutative. 5 plus 0 is 5. Is that the identity property or is that the commutative property? That is the identity property. Why is that the identity property? It's the identity property because of the 0 that's in that problem. Let's try another one. What property is this? 2 plus 3 equals 5, and 3 plus 2 equals 5. Is that the identity property, or is that the commutative property? That is the commutative property. 2 plus 3 is the same as 3 plus 2. Here's your next one. 4 plus 9 equals 13, and 9 plus 4 equals 13. Is that the identity property, or is that the commutative property? Well, it is the commutative property. What they did was they flip-flopped the 4 and the 9, and the 9 and the 4, and that is commutative. Flip-flop. What about this one? 0 plus 8 equals 8. Is that the identity property, or is that the commutative property? That is the identity property. Any number sentence that has a 0 in it is considered the identity property. All right, what about this one? 1 plus 2 is 3, and 2 plus 1 is 3. Is that the identity property, or is that the commutative property? It is the commutative property. 1 plus 2 is the same as 2 plus 1. They both equal 3. Therefore, it is the commutative property. All right, kiddos, let me switch this out. We're going to escape from here. And now we are going to move on to another activity. Now what we're going to be talking about is even and odd. Even and odd are two ways to identify different numbers and to know whether or not they have a buddy that's even or if they're the odd man out. Even numbers are always numbers that you can count by twos with. So even numbers always start with 0, 2, 4, 6, 8. Odd numbers are all the numbers in between. They don't have a buddy. 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9. So our even numbers are 0, 2, 4, 6, 8. Our odd numbers are 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9. So how do we figure out if something is even or if something is odd? Well, on your board, I would like you to write the number 23. I need to identify if the number 23 is even or odd. Well, which digit would I look at? Would I look at the 2 or would I look at the 3? You always look at the number that is in the ones place. The 3 is the digit that is in the ones place. So if you remember on our thing, even numbers are 0, 2, 4, 6, 8. Odd numbers are 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9. But another way to do it is to draw out 3 dots. 1, 2, 3. If it's even, they have a friend or a buddy. If it's odd, there's an odd man out or someone's left out. Well, if I look here, they have a friend, but this one does not. So it's the odd man out. The number 23 is an odd number. Let's try another one. Let's write the number 76. 76. Well, which digit would I look at to decide if it's even or odd? I would look at the number in the ones place. The 6 is in the ones place. Remember, even numbers you count by 2s. Odd numbers are the numbers in between. But I can easily draw 6 dots. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If they have a buddy, they're even. If they're odd, there's an odd man out. So let's see, is 6 even or odd? They have a buddy, they have a buddy, and they have a buddy. Is it even or is it odd? Well, because all of them have buddies, this is an even number. All right, let's try another one. What about the number 9? Now, this only has one digit, so therefore, that's the ones place. Is the number 9 even or odd? On your board, write O for odd or E for even. Well, you could count by 2s to decide if it's even. Or you can count 1, 3, 5, and so on to decide if it's odd. If I'm unsure, I'm going to draw 9 dots. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. How do I decide if that's even or odd? Well, does it have a buddy or is there the odd man out? They have a buddy, they have a buddy, they have a buddy, they have a buddy, odd man out. So the number 9 is odd. That's how you decide if something is even or odd. You can count by 2s to decide if a number is even, or you can count 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9 to decide if it's odd. If those strategies don't work for you, draw the dots. You'll get it right every time. All right, kiddos, next I need you for the next part of this lesson to please have your lesson plan book out. It should say Chapter 1 at the top. If you don't have that handy, please stop the video now and go get your Chapter 1 book. If you already have your Chapter 1 book, we're going to begin by being on page 7 of the book. I'm going to go ahead and get that up for you here now. All right, kiddos. So this is what page you should have out. If you're on the right page, it should say 7 in the corner, which mine is kind of a little glary today because of the sun. But it should say the number 7 in the corner, number 7. If you are ready, go ahead and follow along with me. You do not need to rip out any of your pages in your book. So now we're going to put our lesson all together. At the beginning of the lesson, we learned that the commutative property means to flip-flop our numbers. We learned that the identity property means any number sentence with a 0 in it. We learned that odd numbers can be counted 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, and even numbers are any number that counts by twos, starting with 0. 0, 2, 4, 6, 8. We're going to put all of those things together to be successful on our lesson. We always read the directions first, so please follow along with me on number 1 as I read the directions to you. Complete the addition sentence to show the commutative property of addition. Right now, please circle commutative property of addition. Well, let's write some notes. What is the commutative property of addition? The commutative property of addition means that we're going to flip-flop the numbers. So if you could please write the note flip on your paper, that will help you remember that when we see the words commutative, it means to flip-flop the numbers. All right, you should have the word flip as your notes. So let's look at our problem. We have a 3 here and a 4 here, and they want us to flip-flop our numbers. Well, how are we going to flip-flop the 3 and the 4 when nothing else is here? We know we must use both the 3 and the 4. If the 4 is over here, we know that it must become part of the problem here. 3 plus 4. If you know what 3 plus 4 is, you may write it in here. If you don't know what 3 plus 4 is, something handy is a number chart. I can start at the number 3 and then count up by 4. So 3 plus 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 3 plus 4 is 7. So I would put a 7 here. 3 plus 4 is 7. Well, if I'm to show the commutative property or to flip-flop my numbers, I must use the same numbers given. They've already given me a 4. Well, what is missing? The 3. 4 plus 3. Well, what is 4 plus 3? 4 plus 3 equals 7. I am showing that 3 plus 4 is the same as 4 plus 3. That is the commutative property. Let's go to our next direction. Find the sum. A sum is a fancy word for addition. Write an addition sign so you remember that sum means to add. Then use the commutative property. Circle commutative property of addition to write the related addition sentence. Well, what is commutative property? It means to flip. So draw a line to the word flip. Commutative property means to flip-flop our numbers. First, we must find what 8 plus 5 is. What is 8 plus 5? If you know what 8 plus 5 is, you may write it on the line now. If you don't know what 8 plus 5 is, you could start at 8 and count on your fingers 5 more. So 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 8 plus 5 is 13. Or I could start at the number 8 and count up by 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 8 plus 5 is 13. So we will write it in here. Everyone write in your pages, 8 plus 5 is 13. The directions say that I must use the commutative property. I must flip-flop my numbers. 8 plus 5 is 13. I will use 8 and 5 to show the commutative property. Because the 8 went first on the first problem, the 5 will go first on the second problem. 5 plus what? Well, what is here? 8 plus 5. 5 plus 8 equals what? It's right here. 5 plus 8 is 13. You've now shown the commutative property of addition. Now, what am I going to do next? I'm going to move on to number 3. It is the same direction, the commutative property. The commutative property means to flip-flop your answer. What is 7 plus 9? If you know what 7 plus 9 is, you will write that in now. 7 plus 9 equals what? 7 plus 9 equals 16. Now I'm going to flip-flop 7 plus 9. The 7 became first. So what comes first in the next problem? You must start with the other number. We must write 9 plus what is what? 9 plus 7 equals 16. What they are saying is that 7 plus 9 is the same as 9 plus 7. Number 4, 10 plus 4. What is 10 plus 4? 10 plus 4 is 14. So how would I show the commutative property of 10 plus 4? I'm going to flip-flop those numbers. First, because this started with a 10, I'm going to make this one start with a 4. 4 plus what? I have a 10 and a 4. So 4 plus 10 equals 14. I flip-flop my numbers. 10 plus 4 and 4 plus 10 both equal 14. Number 5, new set of directions. Is the sum even or odd? Right, even or odd? Well, first you have to find the sum. Sum means plus. Please write a plus sign by the word sum. First, we must add. What is 8 plus 1? What is 8 plus 1? Well, 8 plus 1 equals 9. 8 plus 1 equals 9. But we have to decide, is it even or is it odd? Well, how do you decide if 9 is even or odd? Well, you could count by 2s. If you hit that number, it's even. If you're unsure, you can draw 9 dots. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So if you're unsure, I would like you to pause the video and draw 9 dots. When you have 9 dots, you may unpause the video and keep on learning. So let's see, is 9 even or odd? They have a friend. They have a friend. They have a friend. They have a friend. Odd man out. So the number 9 is odd. Write in your book the word odd now. All right, next one. What is 3 plus 9? 3 plus 9. If you know what 3 plus 9 is, please write it in now. If you don't know what 3 plus 9 is, put your finger on the 3. Count out up by 9. What is 3 plus 9? 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 3 plus 9 is 12. How do I decide if 12 is even or odd? Do I look at the 1 or the 2 to decide if it's even or odd? I would look at the 2. Is the 2 even or odd? If you know, you may write even or odd now. If you don't know, we will draw 2 dots. Is that even or odd? Well, do they have a friend? Yes. When you have a buddy, the answer is always even. Please write in even now. All right, next one. What is 4 plus 8? If you don't know what 4 plus 8 is, you can start at 4 and then count up by 8. You could draw 4 dots and 8 dots and count the dots, or you can use a number chart. If I start at 4, I'm going to count up 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 4 plus 8 is 12. I'm not done yet though. I need to tell if it's even or odd. But look, I had 12 here, and 12 was even. So 12 here must also be even. We are going to skip number 8, so you can put an X through number 8. Let's look at number 9. Find the sum. Sum just means to add of 15 plus 0. So that's the first direction. Find the sum of 15 plus 0. What is 15 plus 0? 15 plus 0 is 15. That's our first answer. But some kiddos would think, I'm done. No, you're not done. You just found the sum of 15 plus 0. Now, we must then write the name of the property that you used to find the sum. You need to tell me a property of what we learned today. A property is either commutative or the identity property. Which one has a 0 in it? Is it the commutative property or the identity property? Well, commutative means to flip-flop. Identity means that there is a 0 in the problem. So my answer would be identity. Everybody write in your books, identity property. You can pause the video to catch up to write identity property on your line. When you're ready, press play and we'll move on to number 10. Let's look at number 10. It says, select the number sentences that show commutative property of addition. Mark all that apply, which means it might not be just one problem. It might be more than that we can circle. Commutative property means flip-flop. Everyone write the word flip on their paper now. Now, the commutative property means that we flip-flop the numbers. Let's look now to see if any of the numbers have been flip-flopped. Choice A, 27 plus 4 is 31. Were any of the numbers flip-flopped in that problem? No, that's just a regular old addition problem. So choice A is not correct. Let's look at choice B. 27 plus 4 equals 4 plus 27. Were any of those numbers flip-flopped? Well, let's look. 27 is here first. 27 is at the end. 4 is at the end, and 4 is at the beginning. Did they flip-flop those numbers? They sure did. This is an example of the commutative property. But we are not done because it says mark all that apply. That means I pick as many as I can that are the right choices. Let's look at letter C. 27 plus 0 equals 0 plus 27. Did they flip-flop those numbers? Commutative property means flip-flop. Well, 27 was at the beginning on this side. It's on the end on this side. 0 was at the end on this side, and it was at the beginning on this side. Did they flip-flop? They sure did. Choice C is also correct. Let's look at choice D. 27 plus 4 plus 0 is the same as 27 plus 4 plus 0. Did they flip-flop those numbers? No, they are in the exact same order. 27, 27, 4, 4, 0, 0. That's not an example of the commutative property. So both choices, B and C, were examples of the commutative property. All right, kiddos, to review. Today we learned about two different properties. We learned about the commutative property and the identity property. The commutative property means that I can flip-flop my numbers. Commutative property means flip-flop. We also learned about the identity property. The identity property means any number sentence with a 0 in it. We also learned today about even and odd numbers. Even numbers are numbers we can count with starting at 0, counting by 2s. Odd numbers are the numbers in between, 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9. We also learned we could draw dots to find even and odd numbers. Even numbers have buddies. Odd numbers have an odd man out. Now you are going to be doing your paper for a grade. I would like you in your book to please turn to page 9. Do not start until I have given all of the directions. It's important that you make notes on your homework because if you don't make notes, you may forget what something is telling you to do. So please do not begin until I have given you all of the directions. So please turn to page 9 in your book. Page 9. If you need to pause this video, pause the video so you can be ready to go. Here we go. Let's look at the directions. Find the sum. Then use the commutative property of addition to write the related addition sentence. Commutative property. What does that mean? Let's write some notes to help us while we're doing our homework. Commutative means to flip-flop. You are going to be flip-flopping and finding the answers. Look at number 1. They have done it for you. 9 plus 2 is 11, and 2 plus 9 is 11. That is the example you are to use. So on number 3, 3 plus 10, give an answer. And then on the next line, please flip-flop 3 and 10 and give an answer. You will do that for numbers 2 through 6. 2 through 6. Let's look at the next section. These directions are for 7 through 12. Is the sum, write a plus sign, sum means plus, even or odd. You are to write even or odd. Let's do number 7 together. What is 5 plus 2? If you know what 5 plus 2 is, please write it on the line. If you're not sure, you can use your fingers, you could draw 5 dots and 2 dots, or you could use a chart like this. What is 5 plus 2? 5 plus 2 is 7. Now, we need to decide if 7 is even or odd. You could count by 2s. If it hits that number, it is even. If it doesn't hit that number, it is odd. You can also draw 7 dots. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. If it's even, they'll all have buddies. If it's odd, there'll be an odd man out. Buddy, 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 odd man out. Number 7 is odd. You will do the same thing for numbers 8 through 12. Please add them up, put a sum, and you have to decide if it's even or odd. Let's look at number 13. Follow along with me as I read the directions. Ada writes 10 plus 8 is 18 on the board. Maria wants to use the commutative property of addition to rewrite Ada's addition sentence. What number sentence should Maria write? Well, let's write some notes. We know that the commutative property means to flip-flop. You are to take 10 plus 8 is 18 and flip-flop it and put it on the line. All right, let's look at number 14. Jackson says he has an odd number of model cars. He has 6 cars on one shelf and 8 cars on another shelf. Is Jackson correct? Explain. Now this one is kind of tricky. He has 6 cars on one shelf and he has 8 cars on another. Pause the video now and write 6 on one shelf and 8 on another. All right, well first you have to decide, does he have an odd number? But how are you going to decide if he has an odd number? You first have to figure out how many cars does he have? What is 6 plus 8? After you find that number, you have to decide, is that number odd or even? So the first question is Jackson correct? You must write yes or no. If it's yes, you will tell me why it is yes. If it is no, you must say why it is not correct. So if he is correct, it is an odd number. If it is incorrect, it is even number. Let's look at number 15. Write the definitions of the identity property of addition and the commutative property of addition. Use the addition table to provide examples of each. So, this is how I would like you to do this. On the first line, please write I for identity. Then write 2 dots to give a definition. On the next line, please write C for commutative. You need to tell me what is the identity property in words and what is the commutative property in words. You then need to use an addition. You need to provide me examples of each. So first, tell me what it is, and then give me an example. If you're not sure what an example is, rewind the video, find the identity property so you know an example of the identity property. For commutative, same thing. Tell me what it means and also tell me exactly and give me an example as well. If you don't remember, rewind the video, watch it, and find the examples of identity and commutative. All right. Let's turn to page 10. Page 10. Let's look at the directions. Marvella writes the addition problem 5 plus 6. Is this sum even or odd? First, you need to figure out what is 5 plus 6. Then you need to tell me, is it even or odd? Number 2. What related number sentence shows the commutative property of addition? Commutative means flip-flop. Everybody write notes that commutative means flip-flop. They have given you that 3 plus 9 is 12. On the line, you need to show me the commutative property or flip-flop of 3 plus 9 is 12. The spiral review is all things that you did in 2nd grade. Let's go over it. Amber has 2 quarters, 1 dime, and 3 pennies. How much money does Amber have? Write your answer on the line. Number 4. John estimates the height of his desk. What is a reasonable estimate? So how tall do you think your desk is? Make sure you write a reasonable estimate. I would use feet. Your foot is about 1 foot. So how many feet is your desk? Number 5. We are going to be using the bar graph for number 5. This is called books read. Juan read books, Bob read books, Maria read books, and Alicia read books. Juan read 6, Bob read 2, Maria read 4, and Alicia read 5. You are to tell me who read the most books, Juan, Bob, Maria, or Alicia. Number 6. Who read 3 more books than Bob? Someone read 3 more books than Bob. Find who read 3 more and write their name on the line. After you've completed numbers 9 and 10, you will need to enter it into the computer so I can grade your work for you. You will take pages 9 and page 10 and you will enter it into the assessment section into the computer. Please submit those answers and then I will be able to give you a grade. As always, if you're not understanding, rewatch this video and you will be able to become a pro. See you tomorrow.